Hello guys and gals, and welcome back to another episode of Haunted Gaming. This time we delve into the land of conspiracies and spooky mindfucks and look at one called Cyrebro Code. So sit back and enjoy this conspiracy-ridden creepypasta. Have you ever seen a glitch in a game or perhaps on your phone and computer? I imagine so, since it's common in all computers to be a slight hiccup in the code. I'm a hacker who likes to mess with the code and software and programs to better suit my needs. May it be fixing code glitches, or possibly editing it to add a little bit more flair into things. The thing is, when you start to mess with the code, you find some things that, left out content, that developers were too lazy to remove it entirely from the program, as well as the possibility of a line of code that has no apparent meaning. Perhaps it was the only thing that survived from a deletion of code. The story is about me finding some of this code and trying to figure out what it means, and why I should have left it all alone. It was a normal day for me. I was locked in my office space in my house working on some code for a video game for my friends. They wanted me to add some new textures to some characters and give them a little boost in their power. While editing their power stats, I realized I had to go into the base code for the power series of coding. Upon diving into this, I found the odd line of code. With working in many games, I know when something doesn't belong. I decide to not remove it, but copy the code over to my computer and examine it later. I finish up all the edits and send the file to my friends. I open the code as well as the code for the game and begin comparing it to all the code in the game, looking to see if it was just misplaced. I'm a very curious man. Oddities have always intrigued me. Solving a mystery makes my days, and after searching through all the coding, I found it to have no correlation with the game at all. Even more curious, I decided to transfer it to my decoder and convert the code into binary, to see if it perhaps makes sense in its more simplest form. Sadly, when I tried to translate the binary, it only came out in gibberish, and no matter how I organized the code. Saddened by this, I decided to leave the code alone and move on with my life. A few weeks later, I'm requested by my friend to edit another game, this time for his handheld. I alter the game to his specifications when I notice something that brings up the code from the other game to my mind. I see other line of code that is similar to the one from the game I edited the weeks before, two completely unrelated games on two separate platforms, similar odd lines of code. It's too odd to be a coincidence, and after transferring the edited data to the cartridge and giving it back to him, I immediately transfer the code into binary to pull up the other code and begin to compare to see if they make any sense. Sadly, they were still gibberish, like I was missing something, a part of it. I begin to look in all the files I've had over the years for any more occurring code oddities, but to no avail. I begin exploring the almighty internet for any other hackers who found odd lines of codes in any other games they've edited. I found a few people that said they found odd codes in a Pokemon Red ROM, another in a Conquer Bad Fur Day for the N64, and the last one I found recently was in a PlayStation 2 game called Kingdom Hearts. That's 5 bits of code found across unrelated games and consoles. And after comparing and moving around, I happily found that a few bits and pieces actually fit together to form a partial complete code for possibly a JPEG or an AVI file. Sadly, that was all I was able to find on the internet. Most people don't make public their hacking hobbies. For many months, I was not able to find another line of code. I've been borrowing my best friend's games and looking into their codes for more of the code I'm calling the anomaly. I did manage to find one more a few months later in one of his Xbox 360 games. Now that I had the 6th piece, I could tell that I was close to having the entire line of code. I rent many games from video stores and hoping to find more of the anomaly. With Glee, I find another bit a month after the 6th game I bought for my PlayStation 3. I immediately plugged it in with a huge grin on my face. The code was completed. I inserted it into the program that would be able to complete the process, but sadly I would have to wait for a while for the process to complete. A day later, it's complete. The code was an AVI file, 5 minutes long to be exact. With Glee, I put on my Turtle Beach headphones and put the video in full screen to watch. I opened up into a dark theater with a lone man looking at a screen. The quality of the video was movie-like. Like it was done by professionals. The man turns and looks at the camera. It was apparent he didn't want to be known, who he was. His face was wrapped up to his eyes, which were covered by dark goggles. Upon his head was a bowler hat that he wore, a long leather duster, as well as dark shirt and jeans and tight gloves. He motions for the camera to sit next to him, and it moves as though you are in first-person view of the camera, moving as a normal person's head would when you walk. It is as if I am in the theater with him. The camera sits next to him and looks at the man. He looks at the camera and speaks. "Well?" he says. His voice is a little deep. I'm kind of shocked in the normality of the voice. I guess I expected something really dark or maybe epic. "It seems you've cracked my code," he says. "Naughty. You've been looking at my work and messing with it when it should have been left alone. I bet you're wondering what the code is now. Well, it's not just a video, that's for sure. It's so much more than that. He points to the screen and says zeros and ones. As he says that the numbers appear on the screen as if he's in control of the movie. The base code of all things, computer. Beautiful, is it not? He turns and looks at me now. The code you managed to crack is one of the most complicated algorithms I've managed to create. You shouldn't be hacking, you naughty boy. He looks back at the screen and chuckles a little. I do love my games. Did you play them? The ones they were in. They're some of my favorites. We've been working with computers almost as soon as they were invented. We, as in my family and I. As soon as we saw what computers could do, we knew we had to master it. So we worked with them, inserting ourselves into any project, any building projects involving them. Anything that involved computers, we were there, learning. We began working with the government to see the psychological properties computers had on the human mind, seeing if we could use them to control people's thoughts, movements, and personalities. He looked back at me. I began to feel uneasy. I felt like I should not know this. I knew I should have stopped, but I had to know what he was talking about. He continued soon after he looked at me. His voice took a darker mood. After much working and testing with coding of computers, we felt that we were ready for human trials. We picked up a few random people, some kids, some adults. We took them to a special facility and strapped them into a chair with a computer in front of them. And then we flashed the program in front of their eyes, each with a special command for them to follow 2 minutes after we unstrapped them. Now some weren't affected. That's to be expected. Others? Others responded perfectly. There was one particular subject that did, however, respond very violently. His name was Jeffrey Dahmer. God, that one turned out horrible. He killed 2 of the subjects before we were able to restrain him. He shuddered a little after saying that part. We knew then we had to work very hard on improving the code, so we didn't have the people who were exposed to the code go crazy. We took all the test subjects back to their cells and gave them a special drug that would erase all memory of the place, as well as the codes they were exposed to. Now you know Jeffrey is the infamous killer, right? Well, for some reason he was able to recall the code, then when we let him go, it ended up going crazy again. Man, that was a hell of a mess. Luckily the authorities could take him down, saved us for having to intervene. I was shocked at this information. What kind of codes were these? Did they affect me in some way? I don't know, but I had to listen if I was to find out more. Anyways, after that, we cracked down hard on modifying the code to work much better than before. Soon after we perfected it and after testing it on some more subjects, we started putting the codes all over computer programs everywhere. We've been guiding the world as we see fit since computers have been made. Now, everything's a computer. Our codes exist virtually everywhere, selecting just a few people here and there. Your neighbors, perhaps, maybe the principal of the school, maybe the President of the United States. Well, look at the time, the movie's about to start. I should be going. Oh, by the way, heads up. He points to the big screen and the camera turns towards it. An old-time cinema 3-2-1 slide appears as it hits 0. An absolutely overpowering shriek is emitted from my headphones. It literally blows out the speakers in my headphones directly into my ears. I throw the headphones off and realize that one of my ears is bleeding and all I can hear is a loud ringing. I had to go to the hospital and have surgery on my bleeding ear. It turns out the sound busted a hole in my eardrum and severely damaged my hearing. The doctor wrote that it would be a while for the ringing to stop, and worse, that my hearing could be permanently damaged. I was freaked out by all of this. Did I stumble into some big government mind control conspiracy? I don't think so, however. The way he said president made it seem like they controlled him, so maybe this was some sort of cult. I wasn't sure, but I couldn't find out more about the code, but I wasn't sure I wanted to find out at all. I returned home to find my computer still in places with the documents folder opening, staring at that AVI file the code had made. I tried accessing the video, but it said it was corrupted. Figures. At least I saved the codes unedited in a different folder. I thought of deleting them, but something told me to keep them for some reason. I'm not sure why I felt this, but I decided to leave them be. It took a month for the ringing to finally subside. I hanged out with my best friend a lot during this time. His name's Ivan Young. We've been friends since middle school. He's a great pal and sort of my manager, in which he gets me a lot of my business. He browses the internet looking for people who need, something hacked, and he recommends them to me. I give him a cut, and he keeps sending more my way. It's a semi-biotic relationship. I didn't start hacking again for a long time, though. Honestly, I was scared the man from the video would break into my house or something and kill me if I did. Eventually, though, I did start up again. Small at first. Soon, though, I started getting bigger. It felt like things were returning to normal. Then, I was thrown straight back into the frying pan. I found another code, from the same mystery man who made the others. I froze. I was scared. I thought this was over and behind me was some bad nightmare. However, there it was, staring me in the face. I immediately walked away from the keyboard and didn't touch it again for a couple days. I was thinking about this code. What the hell was I going to do? Would he come after me for finding another one? Would I be affected by the code and finding it? I was freaking out for a long time, but then I started to begin thinking, if maybe I could crack this thing, and I could stop it. I could be a hero and save the world. That's what I thought at the time. Sorely mistaken. I started looking everywhere I could for more of the anomaly. I continued to search for almost a year before I found enough code to begin editing it together. I began trying to decipher the complex code. This is something I'd never really seen before. The way the numbers mix is years above its time. It worked most of every day trying to find a combination for a file to form. I tried working back and forth. Finally, after some time, I just managed to form these coherent lines of code. I decided to call it a night after uploading the code into the binary conformer and see the finished result in the morning. I woke up and looked at my desktop and smiled at the results. It was finished and the file was created. I sat down and was able to open the file, and I had a pop-up for my email. I don't know why, but I felt I needed to open this email. I opened it up and it said it was from a friend, so I didn't think much of what the email would have, probably another hack request. What I found instead was a video. Once again, I felt the compulsion, more like, the impulse to open that email. I decided to go ahead and watch it before viewing the file the binary had made. What happened on the screen reawoke the fear I felt so long ago. It was a man. The man from the last video. I wanted to close it and huddle in a corner and hide away from the world. However, no matter how hard I tried, I could not move my hand up to the X. My hand was literally shaking from the effort. "Well," he sighed. "Someone doesn't listen very well, does he?" He was sitting in some fancy chair in front of a black background. Moreover, he was wearing the same outfit as before. He began to shake his head slowly from side to side while saying, "You just couldn't listen, could you? I must say, you are astonishing in your stupidity." He then looked up back directly at the camera and said, "I guess I didn't make it clear enough before? I'll try harder then." He then looked slightly up at the camera like he was going to talk to the person behind it. He began to speak. "I'm done here, so do what you need to do?" What was he talking about? I was suddenly grabbed from behind and felt something smashed over my mouth and nose. It smelled of chemicals, and I soon found myself falling into darkness. I woke in darkness. Was I dead? "Awake, are we? Did you sleep well?" I knew the voice. It was the voice of the man from the videos. A light appeared from behind and laid a chair in front of me. It was the same one from the video. He scooted the chair closer to me and sat down and looked at me. "Sorry your ears. Hope you weren't wearing headphones now." He knew exactly what happened, I imagined. "Where am I?" I yelled. He stopped laughing and smacked me. Seemed like I hit a nerve. "Don't interrupt me. Do you know how much trouble you've caused me? My family has been up my ass about you. They're beginning to question me. I've loyally served them for decades. Not my fault your code is shit," I said. He punched me hard in the gut at that. As I was even to take the moment to look at how I was bound to see if I could break free, what I saw shocked me. I wasn't bound at all, I was just sitting. However, when I tried to move, I found my arms and legs that wouldn't move. I struggled, but nothing responded. What was going on? "My code is perfect. You just got fucking lucky," he screamed. Seems a little touchy on his work. He took a deep breath and sighed. "I think I should just kill you and leave the whole thing behind. However, I have vision. I can find use in everything, even a little shit like you." Somehow I could sense he was smiling evilly behind his getup. He leaned back a little in his chair and began to speak. "I'm impressed, however, that you were able to crack the code once again, so I feel you should be rewarded. I'll tell you a little more of our story. It's funny. I'm a little surprised we haven't found out, before this. We had a serious intel leak a long time ago. It was when we were recruiting for more people in our cause. We were working for the US government at the time, performing a certain program. Project MKUltra. You heard of it? That was the beginning of our work. Of course, there were many different methods being used, but our group was more fascinated with the technology aspects. We even put a few of the codes in certain arcades around America. That was my first work with video games. Sadly, the results were lower than we'd hoped. See, the tech we needed wasn't around or, perfect enough for our group to prosper, so we decided to seclude ourselves away from the government and begin trying to perfect our work. However, one of our own turned into the information of our work. The project was publicly shut down after that, but, of course, we continued our work in secret to perfect its potential. The mole made an excellent guinea pig to experiment on. But he's dead now because, he served no more use to us. He sat up a little straighter. I felt like he was nearing the end of the story. We haven't recruited since then, felt we would get exposed. Each of us were given a certain set of tech to manipulate and sent to work with their appropriate companies to better learn how they work. I was given control of the video games and most handheld devices, quite useful for controlling the young minds of the world. Thanks to our control, we keep our pockets full and the world in peace, unless of course we need a war between countries to break out to help stop a power problem. The world's our puppet. and we'll do as we say. We can't have people like you messing up our hard work, now can we? No, we can't. But I said I would not kill you. I still see use in you. You never know when you'd need a known hacker to be a fall guy. However, you still need to be taught a lesson. He abruptly stood up and grabbed for what looked like a tablet from a table, but I couldn't see in the dark. Sleep well, you little shit. You're gonna need it. He typed something in on it and showed me the screen. All I could see was white, but as soon as I looked at it, I blacked out. I awoke with my head lying on my keyboard at home. I looked up quickly and looked around my room. Nothing looked out of place or even disturbed. I looked at my computer to see if the files were still there, and they weren't. In fact, none of the anomaly was there. Was it even real? Was it just some crazy dream made up for my imagination? Since then, there was no evidence of the anomaly. I guess it was just a dream. I felt a surge of relief flow through my body. I decided I was going to stay away from the computer for a while and go out. Maybe I'd hang out with friends. My phone started ringing, so I picked it up. "Mr. Charles," said the voice on the phone. "Yeah?" I said. "This is Officer Dewey with the Sumter County Police Department. I'm afraid your friend Ivan Young is dead. I helped carry him to his plot and said a eulogy for him before he was lowered. I decided to stay a little longer. They're just looking at his casket. I can't believe he was gone. The police said the cause of death was a mugging since they found him in an alley in the city. He was shot in the head. Horrible way to go." I began to walk down the hill towards my car, but I decided to look back one last time. I saw a tall, dark figure next to the tombstone. He was there. The man from the videos. The same man who probably erased all the codes and evidence from my computer. He waved. He actually waved. He pulled out something small and black and laid it on top of my friend's tombstone. How dare he come to my friend's funeral? I'm gonna kill him. I ran towards him, at full tilt, ready to beat this man to death. He only started to walk down the other side of the hill, and when I got to the top, he was gone. I looked at what he put down. It was an SD card. I plugged it into my computer and looked at what was in it. All there was one file on it, a video. It started up with the man from the other videos adjusting the position of the camera. "Hey there, my friend," he said. I was once again filled with anger at the man. "Sorry for knocking you out back at my place. I don't want you to know where you were. See, I'm part of a web of secrets after all. Anyways, I wanted you to meet a new friend of mine." He turned out to the view of the camera to show a man strapped to a chair with a bag over his head. "I met him on the way home from his work. I believe you know him, actually?" He jerked the bag off the man's head to reveal the face of my best friend. I was in shock. This man had my friend before he died. Ivan's right eye was purple and swollen. His nose was slightly crooked, possibly broken too. He had a gag in his mouth and looked very much afraid for his life. Tears were falling from his eyes. "Isn't he a handsome fella?" He walks behind him and puts his hand on his shoulders. He was a handful to get here, mind you, so you better appreciate what I had to do to get him to come to this party. "See, I need to teach you a lesson for messing with my family, and this guy here is gonna help me, aren't you?" Ivan let out a muffled scream that sounded like "help me." Good. Then he walks behind the camera and picks it up. "I would now like you to meet my second guest for the evening." He turns to another man in a chair. His head's down and he isn't strapped. I found that odd since the man looked roughed up as well. "Come on, look at the camera." The man looked up and my jaw dropped. It was me. I don't remember any of this. However, I looked like I may have been drugged or something. My eyes were fully dilated and I was breathing heavily. "I must say, you're well strong. You normally don't see these kinds of effects from the codes when you're weak-minded. Now you're going to assist me in teaching yourself a lesson." He walked to the table and put the camera down and turned it towards us where you would see both of us on screen. I hear him pick something up off the table and then he shows it in front of the camera. It was a revolver. He opens a chamber, loads 6 bullets into it and closes it. He then walks over back to me, leaving the camera where it was. He holds the gun out to me and says, "The Queen has given you this glorious gift." I grow scared as I mumble. I accept it graciously. I then take the gun from his hand but remain in my seat. He then walks over back to the camera and gets close to the screen. "I hope you'll be a good boy from now on. Just remember though, we're watching. We're watching everyone. Would you like tea and crumpets?" You hear me in the background says as he walks off screen. "I would love some, Your Majesty." I then stand up and begin to stumble slowly towards my friend with the gun. It looks as though I'm trying my hardest to stop what I know is about to happen. You hear a maniacal chuckle off screen, which I guess is from the man. The screen cuts to black before I see the gruesome deed performed. However, just before the video ends, you hear a gunshot go off. I was feeling so much at that moment. I killed my friend. My best friend. I shot him in the head. He probably dumped on the street to make it look like a robbery. I helped him. My guess as well. I closed the video and the file somehow transformed into a text file that was named "We're Watching." I didn't want to open it. I wanted to curl into a ball and cry over the fact that I just killed my friend. I didn't want to, but as soon as I looked at the file, I felt my hand move slowly towards the file and clicked it open. All there was some text in the middle of the page. It said, "A gift is waiting for you under the bed. A souvenir. Remember, we're watching." The file closed itself and the SD card suddenly became corrupted. Even now, I shouldn't have. I had to look for my gift. I looked under my bed and behold, a box was under there. I pulled it under my lap, pulled off the lid, and the gun from the video was resting at the bottom. The gun had blood splatters on the barrel. My friend's blood. God. I put it right on his head before I killed him. How he must have felt. I couldn't help. I broke down right there. I felt so much guilt. It was all my fault my friend was dead, and after about an hour I finally managed to get myself under control. I kept staring at the gun that killed my friend. I picked it up, opened the chamber, 6 bullets, 1 fired. I just kept staring at it, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And after a while I was left with one option. I took the gun, my laptop, into the bathroom and locked the door. I typed this very story and I'm beefing it up with all the codes I know to keep it protected. I'm putting it on here so the world can know these people and hope that maybe you can avoid any signs of them and keep you and your friends safe. I'm picking up the gun now and putting it to my head. I can't live with what I've done. They aren't going to use me anymore. Well, what the hell? That was, in my opinion, a pretty well done mindfuck. Yeah, you could kind of see it coming, but it was still, done pretty decently. And a very nice not to Polybius, by the way. But one thing I have to state, aside from the chilling antagonist we had and the paranoia-inducing premise, it was a very far-fetched conspiracy, making the likes of Assassin's Creed and Deus Ex seem incredibly tame in comparison. Now, although it's gaming related, we never really have specific games. I mean, we do, but, not like, to the extent where we had in, gaming creepypastas are the norm and phenomenon. Rather than the fact that this alludes to a mystery group or cult, that hides this, dark code within programs and video games and numerous other things computer related. Now, the work I've done as a programmer when developing programs for internal use with firms, we often did leave code in the source when working, but usually it was commented out and we kept it for archival purposes. Usually I'd enhance the old code to the point where it was more efficient and did the job, and it took less resources. And it was so different to the point, that I wouldn't really even relate it to the old code in the first place. But I'd still keep the old stuff just as a backup because, I wrote it, and the fact that, we'd keep it just in case the new code would have issues in testing or, in field use. And so, we could always revert back to the old one, which we knew worked, although it wasn't as efficient as the new code which we designed. So it's actually not uncommon to see this in games and programs when you look into the files. There is leftover code that was there, but it's just not referenced to because you don't need it. But that's also something to mention, though. Now, I was confused with how deep the code was looked at by the protagonist. Usually a lot of games and programs don't have source code released ever. When you create a program, the source code is what we create and write and we understand, and then it's compiled into an executable fashion for the general consumer. We don't want, outsiders or companies looking into the innards of the programs we design, because usually they might have inter-party stuff that we spent money on, and you don't want other people to just instantly copy it off and, basically create their own program from your work. And that's how it works. So it is kind of confusing to see how deep the protagonist was looking into, and it seemed really far-fetched. Yes, you can see code to an extent, such as, configuration files, but really low-level stuff where this code should have been located and has to be located wouldn't be readily available, and you could try and reverse engineer the code, with how the binary was mentioned, but that begs the question, how unused code would be located as a program wouldn't really reference it at all. So that part's confusing. I mean, even when you're doing all this, there's still, reverse engineering is a very tricky bitch, to be honest. The whole use of binary, although it is true, because let's be honest, binary is a set of true or false. It is very, you look at it, it's ones and zeros, trues and false. Digital video is binary, just a set of trues and false, but it's a lot of binary since you're creating like image sets and stuff. And the fact that it is kind of weird. I mean, even when you use disassemblers as referenced here, you can run into numerous issues due to various factors in programming. So reverse engineering, like I said earlier, takes way more time and it's a lot more complicated, even for the people that are real experts in the field. Than the protagonist had hinted. Hell, it is beyond many people's leagues. It's a very tricky thing to do. I'm personally learning it on my own right now, and it is a very tricky thing. But, it is a story, so I shouldn't really get all, into the technicals and everything, and I shouldn't, and, I'm pretty sure maybe some of you might not understand what I'm saying, so I might be rambling at this point, but that's really what I had to think about it. It's just very weird to me, personally. Now, in the end, was a mindfuck with the protagonist killing their friend. That was sad, indeed, and it was you know, it was definitely really well done, I guess. You know, I mean, you kind of saw it coming, but it was just beautifully done. It didn't take too much of your time. It gave you ample amounts of detail, and the antagonist was definitely a very surreal individual. All in all, I thought it was interesting and chilling, and although the technicals have me again constantly questioning, it's written well enough to delve, you know, into and enjoy. Now, what would you rate this and what would you change to make it better? Please tell me in the comments below. This has been another episode of Haunted Gaming. If you like what you saw, then like, comment, and subscribe. This is me, Mudahar, and I am out.